Hi, today we're going to do a drawing of a brick in an orthogonal projection. And so to start that, we're going to need a few different things. Firstly, we're going to need a drawing board. Okay, this is an A3 size drawing board. You can see over here we've got this little tab here that clips up, and so our paper can slide underneath, and then we clip that back down on our paper, and that holds it in position. Same as this little tab here in this corner here. We can use that to hold our paper too. So obviously we're going to need some paper. So here we've got some A3 paper, and we're going to need some drawing equipment. So we've got a T-square here that slides in our drawing board. It has two locking mechanisms. This one on the left, if we push that up, that locks the movement there, and this one on the right, if we push that down, it locks that T-square in that channel over here. So if we take those both off, we can slide that up and down quite easily. You might also be able to see there's a little red line on the T-square, and that line lines up with our measurement guide on the side of our drawing board. We can also use this vertically, so whether you want to go this way or put it in the top. We've obviously got our measurement guide along the top there, so it's up to you if you want to use the top or the bottom. Alternatively, we can use some squares. So here we've got the Kent, I think it's a number 12 or number 10 square, and that is the 60-40 degree angles, which is very useful for isometric drawings, or we can use it like this to give us a nice 90-degree square line. Some benefits about the Kent one is that it measures right from the edge, okay, both directions, and because it's see-through, we can actually flip it over if we want to, and we can still see through to all those measurements either way. So very useful. So we've got that one. We've also got this one, which is a 45-degree angle. Pretty good for oblique drawings. Also good if you want to use that for a square as well. Okay, we've also got a scale rule here. Can come in handy. This is the number 62, so it has a few specific scales on there. We might use that at some point. Also going to need an eraser, and it's up to you. You can either use a normal pencil, make sure it's sharp, or if you've got available, maybe a pacer. And if you're feeling up to it and you're feeling super skilled, you could use an Artline 0.4 fine black pen. So today I'm going to use the pacer, just because that's probably what most of you are going to start with. And when we use the pacer, we sort of want to make sure that we're using that lead nice and evenly across our pen, or pacer, sorry. If we're just constantly using it on the same side, it just wears away at the graphite lead, and you end up with a wider line. So you will notice as you keep drawing, as you continue, you'll start with maybe a sharp line, and if you keep using that same angle, you'll end up with quite a wide line. So the first thing we need to do before we get started is draw a margin around our page, so we can neatly set that up, and then also a little title block in this corner so that we can put the title of the drawing, put your name, maybe what class you're in if you're doing this at TAFE or school, the scale of the drawing, and maybe the topic, so maybe the subject that you're doing this in, and then we'll have a little block, a box in the corner of the title block for your mark. Okay, so to get started, we need to measure in 20 mil from this edge, and that's so that we can, when we put our paper in that corner there, we've still got a little bit of a margin there, and we can line that up with that number 0, or the start of our guide up here. So if we line that paper up here on that edge, and we sit our paper nice and snug in that bottom gutter there, clip that in, we can start with our left margin, which is going to be over 20 mil. So you can see I'm lining this T-square up with the 2 there, which is 20 mil. Okay, and then we need to make sure that we're starting 10 mil up. So let me just put a little starting mark here. Okay, and that'll give me my point to start with down here. So coming up 10 mil on the square and over 20 mil. Alright, putting a little mark there. I'm sure you can hardly see that. Okay, and then I'm just gonna move that T-square back across, starting on that mark, and then just checking that we're lined up the top. Okay, and then we've got 10 mil down from the top, which gets us to 26.5. And when we mark this margin, we want to have the angle of the pacer, so the top of it leaning towards the direction we're going. If we're pushing it, there's a good chance that you could create quite a nasty line or even damage the paper. So there you go. There's your starting margin. Okay, and what we can do now is just pop that up, our little clamp on the left side, and just lift this right hand side one up and just slide this over, alright, until that margin that we just drew lines up with that mark there, which is our measuring guide along the top of our board. So just to double check that, I'm just going to line that T-square up. That looks really good. And then I'm just going to apply a bit of pressure to the paper so it doesn't kick it up, and then just slowly put that gutter down, that clamp down on our paper to hold that in position. Okay, so because this drawing board is made to be square, we know that if we're using our T-square this way or this way, it's going to be 90 degrees to one another. So what I might do now, you can see that, you might be able to see that this paper lines up exactly with the 40 mark here, which is 40 centimeters or 400 millimeters. So I can easily come back over 10. Okay, we're only doing 20 on the left hand side. The other sides will have 10 mil. Okay, so I'm just going to come down from the top 10 millimeters, just so that I know I can see it with my T-square. Right, just there. A bit hard to see probably with the camera. Okay, and then I've got to come up from 269 up to here. Okay, and that gives us the 10 mil on this side. So there we've got our left hand side and our right hand side done, and now all we've got to do is join the dots, and then we're going to have a margin done really nice and quickly for our A3 paper. All done. Alright, so next we need to do our title block, which is going to be in our bottom left corner. Now the dimensions for our title block are going to be 135 across So what I might do is just break it down. So we've got 35, 1, 2, 3. That's going to be part of our corner there. I'm going to come across 50 mil there, and then another 50 mil to there. Okay, so 25 and a half. We've got to come up 20 mil. So you should be able to see on the left hand side our little red mark on our T-square. Our little red mark, if we're on our margin there, lines up with 5 millimeters on our side measurement guide. Okay, so I know that if I come up 20 mil, that side measurement guide is going to be on 25. So at the moment it's on 5, we've got 10, 20, that's on 25 there, and I know that my title block has to come across to 255, which is in line with that mark I've made down there. So now I can draw a nice line across here, about the same hardness as I did for the border. And then this line below goes halfway between those two lines, but it stops here. Okay, so I'm going to just move this up 10 mil from my margin to line up with the 15 on the left hand side, and then go from 25 and a half, or 255 if you want, over to 35 and a half, which is in line with that. Okay, then from this line, our top line, have to go up another 15 mil. So if I go on this left hand measuring guide again, up 15, 30 and 40, okay, and put a line all the way to our margin. That just leaves us with a few vertical ones to do. So I'm going to clamp this T-square in on the left and the right to try and lock that in. And I get out our square that I showed you before. Alright, and I'm just going to line that up with that edge, because that's our furthest over for our title block. And then the next one over is 50 mil over from that left hand line. We've got another vertical line to look like that, and then over another 50 mil, which was this mark here, to give you the title block. Okay, so this is going to be our title in here of our drawing, and we're going to have name, class, scale and topic. So our drawing today is going to be orthogonal brick. So I'm just going to do a really, really faint line, about 3 mil up off the bottom of that. Not sure, you probably can't see that line there, it's really, really faint. The way you can draw a nice faint line is hold your pen or pacer or pencil at the end of the pacer instead of down here. Holding it up here, just hold it at quite a steep angle and just gently run it along the page. That'd be very hard to see. Okay, so then we can start printing here. Title. Sorry for my messy writing. Oh, my pacer. Okay, down here we're going to have a name. So I'm just going to do another really faint line up about 2 mil off the bottom of that. Feel free to pause this video at any time if you need to, just slowly, if you're trying to catch up, if I'm going a little bit quick for you. Okay, then at the bottom we're going to have class. outside box, we're going to have scale. So today's scale for our drawing is actually going to be 1:1 on A3 paper. Okay, if you're using A4 paper, which is actually half the size of this, you might need to reduce the scale further and do something like 1:2, maybe 1:5, to be able to fit that image of the brick onto your paper, okay? So there's scale in that one, and then in our bottom one we're going to have topic. Okay, great. So now we're all set up to go. We've got our margin the whole way around our page. We've got a title block here ready to go. Now all we have to do is draw our brick. So an orthogonal drawing or projection has 3 different viewpoints. So we have the plan view, which would be the top. Okay, so if you had a brick sitting here, the projection looking down onto it. Then we have the elevation, where we're looking at the side of it. Okay, and then we have the side elevation or the end elevation, where we're looking at the end of the brick or the side. Okay, so when we do this, we're going to put our plan in the bottom left. Sort of interchangeable, you can move things around wherever you want. Okay, today we'll work on having the plan view in the bottom left, and we'll have our elevation up the top left, and then our side elevation over on the top right. Okay, and once we've established where we're going to put our images or our projections, we'll start putting in some darker lines, and then slowly work towards putting in dimensions and some printing, or putting some names and stuff down. Okay, so if we just do a little rough drawing here, we've got the dimensions of a brick. Okay, we need to know that before we can start drawing. There goes the pacer again. So our brick, standard brick, okay, is 230 long by 110 wide and by 76 high. So we need to figure out how to put this onto this page with our 3 different views. So our page will look something like this, with our plan view here, which is our top view, and our elevation up here, which is our side view, and our side or end elevation here, which is from this other side. Okay, so we've got our elevation and our end or side elevation. Okay, so the length of our brick is 230, right? And the width of our brick, if we go back and check, is 110. And then from our elevation, okay, that's going to be our side. So the height of our brick will be 76, but our length stays at 230, yeah, because it's the length of our brick. That means that these can all line up nice and neatly. The length of this drawing should line up nicely with the length of this drawing, okay? And for this one, we're still 76 high because we're just looking at it from another angle. So these 2 heights should line up nicely. And the width of our drawing up here is 110 because it's the width, okay? So to put that on our page, we need to figure out how to evenly space it to make it look nice and neat. So what we want to do is, if we've got a margin up here and down here, okay, we've got a space between the margin and our drawing here. and we've got a space between our two drawings, and then another space at the bottom between the margin and our plan view. Okay, so we want all three of these to be the same. So if we quickly measure our page, it should be 276 millimeters. Okay, so overall we've got 276 millimeters, 276, and we need to deduct our drawing sizes, so our 110 and our 76, off that to give us our remaining gaps. Okay, so 276 minus 110 and minus 76 should leave us with 90 mil. So 90 mil, these three gaps have to add up to 90 mil. So that means we can divide 90 by 3 and we should end up with 30 millimeter gaps. So 30 up here, 30 up here, and 30 down there. So what we can do now that we know that is we can put some really faint lines on our page. Okay, and that will let us plan the height of our three drawings. Okay, once we've done our height, we can come back and do the length. So let's start with our height. Let's use this little red mark on our T-square and line that up with our margin down the bottom, and that puts me on this left hand measuring guide on 5 mil. So if I'm going to come up 30 mil, that'll take me to 35, nice and easy. And we just hold that pencil up here, like I said before, to give us a nice faint line. Go into our title block. Okay, now we've done our 30 mil. We've got to come up 110 for our brick. Okay, so let's go from 35 up to 145. Because that should be our 110, and draw a nice faint line across the page there too. Okay, you don't need to lock it off, just hold it nice and snug. Alright, so we're at 145, and then we've got another 30 mil gap here. So let's come up another 35, so that'll take us from 145 up to 175. And just do a nice faint line across the page. Okay, and then we've got one more line to draw, which should be up 76, because that's the last measurement for our elevation. So from 175, if we come up 6 mil, that's to 181. Alright, and then the remaining 70 takes us to 251. Just do a nice faint line across the page there. And there we have nicely planned out where we're going to put our three drawings. So now we need to do sideways. So very similar to vertically, horizontally we've got one gap here between our margin and our drawings. We've got another gap here in the middle between the elevation and plan and the end or side elevation. So that's two gaps. And then lastly, a gap over here between our end elevation, our margin. So again, we've got three spaces that we want evenly spaced across the page. Very similar to how we did it vertically. So our overall measurement is very easy to get because we've lined our left margin up with our 0 mark on our T-square. So I should have 390 millimeters overall. And then we've got the length of our brick, which is 230. So we're going to do 390 minus 230 and also minus 110 because that's the width of our side elevation. Okay. So that should leave us with 50 millimeters. So now we've got to do 50, similar to what we did here. 50 divided by 3 is 16 and a bit. 16 and 2/3. So 16.6. Let's just run with 16, yeah? Nice round number, 16. So our first gap will be over 16. We have another gap over here. Gap 2 will be 16 mil. And gap 3, we should have 16 mil left over. So here's a good chance for us to use our squares. Okay, let's mark 16 off our T-square. Get this guy out. Okay, and mark that up the page. Feel free to turn your T-square the other way if you feel more comfortable using it this way or that way. It doesn't really matter. Now we've got to come over 230. So 230 plus 16 would be 246, which means our brick's going to be over here. Nice straight line all the way up the page. Okay, we should have 230 there. And then our next one, we're going over 16 mil again. So that'll be there. At 262. And then we need to go over 110 for our end elevation up here. So that will put us on 372, and we should be left, sorry, just run that a little bit long there, into the title block. That should leave us with about 16 mil left over. Pretty close, 17 mil. Right, so now we've got a bit of a plan here. We've got our plan view down the bottom. We've got our elevation here at the top, and our side or our end elevation over in that top right corner. So let's start working with our plan first. Okay, what we can do is put let's start working with our plan first. So what we can do is put in a darker line around the outside of our drawing to signify the outside of the brick. Okay, remember what I said before about turning your pacer slightly so that you don't end up with various width lines. Okay, and then we can put our vertical lines in to give us the outside of our brick. Now what we can do is draw the frog. So the frog of the brick is over 38 mil from the ends, and it's down 25 mil and up 25 from the top and bottom. So what I might do here is come up 25 mil, so lining up the bottom of the brick. My little red line over here shows 35. So to come up 25, that'll take me to 60. Okay, I'm just going to clamp that off there. And we need to come across 38. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing all the maths, I'm just going to line my square up with 38 here on this line to give me the edge of the frog. Okay, so using the T-square coming across to 38 mil, because I know I've got to be over 38 mil. I'm just going to line that up with this pencil line here. That's the good thing about these see-through Kent ones. Okay, we need to stop this line 25 mil down. So I can see that the top of this brick is on 85. Come down 5 mil, it gets us to 80. Take another 20, gets us to 60. So if I go from there all the way down to the T-square, that'll give us the internal line for that edge. Okay, we can do the exact same thing on the other side of this brick by doing exactly what we just did on that side. So lining that pencil line up there with 38, and we know we've got to come down. Sorry, let me move this back up. We know we've got to come down to 60. So that line up there, 38, and we've got to start down at 60 and run all the way to our T-square. Okay, now we can join those two up on the bottom, and we can move it up to do the top. Nice and easy. Okay, now I need to find the center of this frog so that we can mark the corners in and join them together. So one way we could do that is by using the 45 square. So we're going to draw some really faint lines in those corners there. And where they cross over, we'll know that that's the center. So you can see these two cross over here, those two cross over there. I'll move this back up, this T-square, line those two up nice and straight, do a heavier line there, and then I can come back later on, just rub out where those lines extended through, and go over those again to make them a little bit fainter, a little bit darker, just so that we can see them more clearly. There we go. There's our plan pretty much done. Okay, so let's move up to the elevation now. We can do our external lines first to give us a nice dark line to work to. Sorry if my head or shoulder gets in the way here. It's a little bit harder to see working away from my body. Then we can do our, sorry I've run this too far. That's what you need the rubber for, the eraser. Alright, we can do our vertical lines here now. And again on our other side. So now we need to draw some hidden detail lines. So hidden detail is as if we had X-ray vision and we could see that this frog existed inside the brick. So hidden detail lines are slightly different from these lines here, and they're broken lines. What I mean by broken is that they have little gaps. Okay, so they're like little short lines rather than long, thick lines. Okay, so we need to draw this frog up on our elevation. So what we can do is clamp our T-square off. Okay, we're going to do some really, really faint lines here. So we're going to line up the edge of our frog with our square. I'm just going to do a really faint line from the top of our elevation down a little bit, about 20 or 30 mil on both ends. Okay, and then we also want to do the middle where our lines intersected. Okay, we want to do that as well. Really faint line up the top on our elevation. Okay, so now I can tell you that the bottom of the frog is down 12 mil from the top of the brick. So if we line our square up with the top of our brick, it should be 251 over here on the left, our little red line. So 251 minus 12 would give us 239. Okay, so line that up there, clamp it off. We're going to draw a hidden detail line like this along our T-square between our two internal really faint lines there. So hopefully you can see that. And then we need to join. This is where you can sort of freehand it, but we need to join up this line here where these two intersect, the top of our elevation and our projected line up from the frog. Okay, we need to draw that corner to this one. Okay, hidden detail, remember, it's not a solid line, it's a little stripe, like a little stripy line, I guess you want to call it. And then again on the other side, exactly what we just did on the left side, we're going to do on the right hand side. Okay, and those are hidden detail lines. So okay, hopefully your lines are faint enough that they're not obvious. Mine are a little bit darker because I'm trying to help you sort of see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to rub those out really gently. Okay, you should be left with something that looks a bit like that. Now for our end elevation or our side elevation, same thing as what we've done with our other ones. We're going to do the external lines in first, a little bit darker, just so that we know what they are. Okay, and put our vertical lines in. And again, we've got some hidden detail to do. So what we can do for that is we can project this line across where our hidden detail was drawn from before to give us a very faint line here. Okay, and then what we need to do is figure out how far in from the end elevation does our frog start. So if you remember, it was actually 25 mil from there to there. So that's going to be the same from there to there and from this corner into the start there. So feel free to measure that with your square like this if you want. Okay, we just need a really faint little mark like that. And I'm going to measure it from 125 back to 100 just because it's a little easier for me. And then we need to find halfway of this end elevation to meet in the middle, because that's what we've got here. The center of this frog is halfway between our two marks there and down at this line. So half 110 is 55. We just do a really faint mark there, And then what we can do is line up our marks and just do a really short little hidden detail to show that frog on the inside of the brick there. There you go. There's our orthogonal projection of our brick. So feel free to go ahead and put dimensions on this if you want, and also we might put some and also what we might do is put plan here, elevation and side elevation, so that if anyone comes to read our plan they can see what they're looking at. So what we might do is do that first. We'll come down here about 10 mil, and we'll do a nice little faint line across there. So what we'll do first is we'll come down. What we'll do first is we'll come down here about 10 mil, put a nice little faint line there. And we can write plan. Again, very sorry for my ugly writing. And then 10 mil down from the top. Nice little faint line there to write on. And we have our elevation here. Very ugly writing, very sorry. And again over here we've got our side elevation. So in terms of dimensions, there's a few different ways to do this. Personally, I prefer to come up a little bit, so just keep everything the same. So I might come up, because we don't have much room here, I might come up about 20 mil first. Okay, and do a line across here, which is the width of our brick. Sorry, my pencil lead wasn't quite long enough there. Okay, and I might actually put some vertical lines here for you, which start off our drawing between 3 and 5 mil. So just whatever you want to choose, just make it the same the whole way around. I'm going to run with about 3 mil, okay, and then that just runs past that line about the same distance, if you can see that. Okay, the same on this side. Now, some people prefer those two lines to cross over. The way that I was taught was that you run it into that line. There are lots of different ways to draw, so sort of no right or wrong. If you want them to cross over and bisect that with the line, that's fine. If you want to do arrows to signify where it measures, feel free to do that as well. That's fine, but when you draw your arrows, just try and draw them curved like that rather than straight and wide. Okay, they should be narrow and slightly curved to look like that. Now, when you put the number on there for the size of the dimension, it should be in the middle of your line. Okay, so just eyeballing is about there. So that's 230 mil. Okay, so really sorry my battery's about to die on my camera, but now you understand how to do that. Feel free to do the dimensions for the frog. You might want to do them projecting out to the side as well, and for the plan. And there you go, there's your drawing.